I've said it before in the past, and I'll say it again. I am not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan, and not because I hate it or anything. It's just the lore I'm starting to learn about. I've only read a couple of pages of the Silmarillion and the Hobbit, but the lore is pretty interesting, especially around Melkor and Sauron. Sauron, it's hard to decide who's more of a devil figure, Sauron or Melkor. They both sound like evil sons of bitches. But it is interesting to get into. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Internet's finally back up, so I can finally do this. And yes, and 2 bits of information came out. This isn't me really responding to an article, although I will be linking 2 articles, one both from Bound into Comics, and basically the first news is that yesterday a Lord of the Rings fan site, I'm not going to name them just because I don't want to start shit with them, but they claimed that people were, I guess, I don't know what's the word, homophobic, I guess, about Ian McKellen being Gandalf, and people were giving them the riot act over it, myself included, who again doesn't know much about Lord of the Rings and has never been the biggest fan of it. But even I am kind of sick of this, where people just do this, where they put information out there, they claim something has happened, and they never offer examples. I myself am guilty of this. For the most part, I've kind of done it on and off in certain videos, like my What Writers Can Learn From series. I do try to give examples, but I can never. The difference between this and what I do is, though, I just forget to give examples sometimes. I just am vague because I forget. And I can always do an update to those videos, but I do think it's kind of reckless just to put that out, to just blatantly say that they've seen misogyny or racism or sexism or homophobia or whatever. I really hate when people do that and they offer no examples. They just say it happened, and then that's it. They expect you to believe them. It is infuriating. Not infuriating, vexing. Very vexing. And, yeah, I called them out for this. I responded with a gif of Anakin saying liar, and they blocked me, which was kind of awesome, I'm not going to lie. I can take a little bit of pride in that. I mean, I've already been suspended from that site 5 times, so at this point, I take what I can get. But, yeah, people seem to like that, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. My main point is, if you're going to put that out there, if you're going to say you've seen something, you have to give proof. Don't be an asshole like me and just say stuff and not give examples. You need to do that, or it's just slander or libel. And I wouldn't be surprised if this dumbass was thinking he saw something he saw years ago on an edgy site. Maybe that could explain it, but he never offered examples. He didn't say anything. And like I said twice, I call bull. I don't believe it. They offered no context, no elaboration, no examples, so why should I believe them? And the other news is there's a petition going around for Lord of the Rings, Amazon's Lord of the Rings, to not have sex scenes and all that. Now, first, for a disclaimer on this one, I'm not a prude, nor am I a believer in petitions, but I kind of wish this one would take effect in some regard, because how often have we seen franchises we love get bastardized? We saw Star Wars get bastardized. We saw Game of Thrones get bastardized, although that was more or less to do with the writers, or the people in charge, not the actual... Well, actually, no, this is pretty much the same thing. Is the people in charge of writing and directing just bastardized, and they did not give a shit about the fans. But, and like I said, I'm not a prude, so I'm not against nudity or sex scenes in shows, but I think Lord of the Rings is someplace that doesn't belong, because from what little I understand of Tolkien, he wrote Lord of the Rings to be a little bit more wholesome. I'm sure there was some violence in it, and probably a lot of blood. Well, I think that was left up to the imagination. Again, I haven't read The Lord of the Rings. I've only read pages of The Hobbit and The Silmarillion, but I have to imagine some people imagined it being more bloody, but I imagined it being more wholesome for the time it was created in, because he wrote this in a time when people were less pussified, when they talked about horrible things that happened in mythology. I remember when Michael Moorcock was a kid, he went to some kind of school and they told him the stories of the Kalevala. That has some dark shit in it. The darkest among them that I know of is the story of Kullervo, where there is incest, death, murder, revenge, brooding, like lots of stuff. And it's a really good read. I've just gotten to the part about Kullervo in it, but from what I've heard of it, that was in it. And they were reading this to Michael Moorcock when he was a kid. So mythology is a dark place. And Tolkien, or Michael Moorcock was born before the time of Tolkien, so even then they were a little bit hardened and not as pussified. So I have to imagine Tolkien's generation, when he wrote The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, was even less pussified. But yeah, it was supposed to be just like a mythology for either England or Europe. Mostly England, because England didn't have a lot of mythology because they lost a lot of their mythology either from the Christianization efforts or from the Viking invasion. A lot of that was lost. Like the stories of Cuchulainn and stuff with the Ulster cycle. Actually, no, I think he meant the main isle, not Ireland. But some of that stuff was lost. And part of his intention when he wrote Lord of the Rings was both... It was kind of personal entertainment for him and his circle of friends and his kids. The other thing was he wanted to create a mythology for his country. Which I gotta give the guy some credit. You really have to admire the task he put before himself. And it is a shame he gets slandered now, but that's beside the point. And I just don't think this petition is going to do anything, because how often have we seen these petitions go up and they do jack squat? They do jack diddly do. Bupkis, nada, zilch. Probably a lot. The only one that was kind of impressive was the one for Game of Thrones. Like, I heard about all the signatures on that one, and I'm like, that's kind of funny. And then I heard someone say, wait, if a petition gets enough numbers, doesn't it have to go to the White House? And then someone joked, yeah, you can imagine if this thing got on Trump's front desk, he'd be like, what the fuck? Oh no, he'd walk in like a boss and be like, you're going to fix it right now. I'm sorry, I just found that hypothetical situation kind of funny. It would have been funny. I'm kind of sorry it didn't happen. But, yeah, this petition isn't going to do anything, I don't think. Because people in the entertainment industry, they seem dead set on bastardizing products we all love and upsetting the actual fans and being snarky. Snarky. So it would not surprise me if they hear about this petition and they just give a real big middle finger to everyone. And to everyone who is a fan of The Lord of the Rings, I'm just going to say this. As someone who lost Star Wars, you have my condolences. And you have my sympathy, because this is going to probably hurt for you. But my advice would be, don't watch it. Unless you actually want to see if they do a good job, in which case, fine, watch it. Either way, I won't hold it against you. But if you are a Lord of the Rings fan and you know they're going to bastardize this, or you believe they will, then don't give them your money. Don't give them the clicks. I don't encourage pirating, but if you want to see if they do it justice or not, and you don't want to give them money, find some way. I don't care. But I'm not going to encourage piracy. Well, I could. No. I'll leave that up to you. You do you. But it is kind of sad that it took this for me to really get more serious into getting into Lord of the Rings, because this is like I can't decide what's sadder, this or the fact that the Berserk author died recently, a few weeks back. Like, that was sad. And I can't decide which is worse. Actually, no, the guy dying, that one was actually worse, because Tolkien's been dead for decades. But, yeah, if you're a fan of The Lord of the Rings, I say don't do it. Don't give them the money. Don't give them the views. Just do something else. Don't do anything stupid. Don't harass anyone. I'm pretty sure some Star Wars fans might have done that, although that is very suspect. Because how often have we heard them say, oh, we've been harassed by fans, and then they go off the internet for a while, or off social media. But yeah, if you are thinking of doing that and harassing people or just voicing your contempt, don't do it. They're not worth it. Just continue about your life as you normally do. If you're like me and you're just now getting the Lord of the Rings because of this, I would say just buy the books and whatever other products they have. I've tried watching the Peter Jackson trilogy, but I'm a skimmer. Like, I skim through things a lot, so it's kind of boring. But it is interesting. Like, I find the Nazgul very eerie. Like, even when I was a kid and I would see images of them, they gave me the creeps. Like, it really just goes to show that Tolkien had a very good imagination. Then again, he survived World War I, so his imagination would have some darker elements to it. To which I can only congratulate him, and he has more than earned his place in the canon of fantasy, in my opinion. He's earned his legacy. Similarly to how Lovecraft did, and the only difference is when Lovecraft tried to join the military for World War I, his mother made him get out of it somehow, which is kind of sad. Like, he actually wanted to join the military to fight in World War I. I would have been trying to find ways to sneak my way out of it, but that's just me. And I kind of like the influence Tolkien has had on fantasy, or what I imagine the influence is. Because I think before him, fantasy wasn't the same. To my knowledge, before him, there were fantasy writers, but I think sword and sorcery was more common. And another reason why I think you shouldn't watch this if you are a Tolkien fan, not even to see if they bastardize it or not, is that Tolkien deserves some respect, and I highly doubt the people at Amazon are going to show him an even remote ounce of deference. Just like I wouldn't expect them to show deference to Lovecraft or Robert E. Howard or Michael Moorcock or any of the great writers that came up in the past century. I would not expect them to show any respect to these men, or I would expect it kind of if they were women, but that's because women are now are a kind of protected class in the social justice cult. So, yeah, but I highly doubt they're going to show respect to Tolkien, which I think is more important than just, or it's as important as the fact that they might bastardize The Lord of the Rings, which is loved by many. It is loved by many, and they should be doing their damnedest to court the actual fans of Lord of the Rings and the expanded material Tolkien and his son created. That's who they should be pandering to, not normies. But this is Amazon. They've said in the past they want it to be the next Game of Thrones. Well, no. And this is another reason why it shouldn't surprise people that Amazon is doing this, or this is a reason why it shouldn't surprise you. Jeff Bezos said they are looking for the next Game of Thrones. He said this, and they ended up with Lord of the Rings. Or at least a story that inhabits the same universe, and it just can't take place in the trilogy, I guess. Is they're looking for the next Game of Thrones. They think that is Lord of the Rings. The problem is Jeff Bezos and whoever he's putting in charge of this, people in the entertainment industry are the most out-of-touch assholes you will ever find. I've seen this from the way they act. I've seen it how they act on social media. I've seen it from the statements they've made about their own customers. They had no problem calling you the worst names, so why bother giving them money? Like, don't give money to people who hate your guts. And these people are dead set on doing whatever they want to do, and there's no talking them out of it, apparently. So, I see little point in trying to convince them. That's why I think this petition is pointless. That's why I think you should just not be giving them money at all. Just not accept it. I'm not telling you to accept it by a long shot, because this is no different to me than what they did to Star Wars. And I loved Star Wars. As a kid, and, well, not as a kid, but when I was going through middle school and I was just getting into it, because I only saw one of those movies when I was in kindergarten, and then kind of got into it after during middle school. But yeah, I still loved it, and they raped it. They bent it over a table and had their depraved way with it. Disney did that. And Amazon's going to do the same thing. So I'm not saying you shouldn't be upset. Voice your displeasure with them. Just do it in a less destructive way is all I'm asking. Actually, I'm not even asking. That's more like a suggestion. I mean, this is probably like me telling a Mandalorian what to do. You can't tell a Mandalorian what to do. You can just make sensible suggestions they might follow. So, yeah, that's kind of what this is. I'm just going to make a suggestion. And those are the main two stories that I was hearing of yesterday and today. And I find it kind of funny that these two things came up. One, because one fan site tried to virtue signal using Tolkien, claiming he was woke. Yeah, no, Tolkien was not woke. He was far from woke. He was sane. Woke people are not sane. They are crazy. They seek the destruction of the Western civilization. Tolkien was a part of the Western civilization. Well, technically he was born in Africa, then brought to Western civilization. But, yeah, that's neither here nor there. And he would not like social justice. I mean, he was a Catholic, a devout Catholic. He was a good person from all accounts, of what I can tell. He was just a good person. And the fact he gets slandered sometimes is kind of aggravating. Same with Lovecraft. The fact these two get slandered by a bunch of asshats who are probably jealous they'll never accomplish anything like him. So no, he was not woke. He was not part of the postmodernist dumpster fire that we currently inhabit. And plus, wokeism requires you to be obsessed with the idea of slavery and slave owner, or oppressed and the oppressor. Tolkien would not probably be in line with that. He was, yeah, again, he was a decent guy, and I think he would be sane enough to recognize that wokeism is kind of evil. And it's all about tearing people down to build something up. Tolkien never had to tear anything down to build something up. He took inspiration from what came before and built something up himself. Whether it be language, a fictional history for the world he created, the characters he made, they were all just stuff that he took inspiration from what came before. Like one way I like to describe Lord of the Rings, from what little I know about, is it's kind of like take Catholicism, the Kalevala, the Volsunga saga, and like various European cultures, and put them in a fantasy setting. That's kind of what Tolkien did. Or that's as I understand it. So he never had to tear anyone down. He never had to go around saying what awful things people were. Plus, he hated allegories. The woke people love allegories. Tolkien vehemently despised allegory in all its forms. Like when someone thought he was making I think it was Saruman. Someone asked him if Saruman was an allegory for Adolf Hitler. He's like, no, that is not what is happening. That is not what I was doing. Saruman is Saruman, not Hitler. And this guy was taking shit even when he was alive. So this is would probably be nothing new to him. He probably wouldn't. I question whether he would care or not, because, well, actually, no, I don't really know I don't really remember what he thought of it as a whole. I do know someone gave him a goblet with the evil language on it. He used that as an ashtray, which I thought was kind of funny. Like, he was kind of a funny guy from what I hear. And I wouldn't start someone say he was kind of like a troll, but now I'm getting off topic. The main point is he wasn't woke. I see no proof that he was woke or evidence. If anything, if wokeness was a thing back in his day, he would have rightfully called it out for the BS that it was. Or at least that's what I like to think. And with that, I think I'll end the video, because I really had no idea where I was going with this, other than just be reasonable. I mean, I might be preaching to the choir on that part, because from what I've seen, the Lord of the Rings fan base is pretty sane and reasonable. At least I like to think y'all are. Just, if you're upset about this, fine, sign the petition, and don't give Amazon your money or the clicks. Just don't. They're not worth the time of day. They are greedy goblins, and nothing more. That's all I can really say. Have a nice day, and remember the game was rigged from the start.